challenge of playing these teams you've not really seen in a while in this environment. That environment offers its different perspectives. Your thoughts on the swing that's coming up.
Have you been in that environment before? Are you going with us? You'll be able to write about it even more once you're in it. I think the environment's one thing, but I think it's probably the teams that are a difference now. They've got two really good teams. Florida Nationals 9-0 at home, correct? No one's beating them at home. They're a good team. Went to Old Dominion, won last week. Tells you enough right there. And Florida Atlantic, much improved team too. So, environment's one thing, but it's the team that you're going to play in those environments that makes it the most difficult. But when you take a good team, and when you talk about environment, you're talking about kind of lack of environment, lack of crowds and all that. I guess Florida Atlantic, I have a few more, but just my times at Florida International and kind of the way it is, seems like every game you'll have to be able to generate your own energy. Won't be much energy generated from the crowd.
I mean, how much, you mentioned having to generate that, how much have you, in your experiences, seen that affect the team, or just how that can make a difference at times? I
haven't been in it a whole lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I haven't been in that kind of environment many times. But like I say, it's about practice. Practice in that environment every day. And that's what you do. Practice has to prepare you for games, and practice has to be more difficult in games. And so from that standpoint, there's no adjustment. Naturally, it won't be like running out and diddle when it's packed and your players can feed off the emotion of the students or the emotion of this building. There won't be any of that. Even in some environments on the road, a player can feed off the opposing, crowd some, the noise, the, atmosphere. But there won't be a whole lot of that in Florida. We'll have to find ways to generate our own, our own emotion.
That's specifically about Carson and Jared here. Carson, his role's really changed and had to evolve, be a lot more, depend on his versatility a lot more during the conference stretch, and whether he's in the post or outside of it. Just what is it about him that's allowed him to succeed in all of that, and just how different of a player have you seen just during this conference stretch without Charles down there?
Well, I mean, the one ingredient he has never changed. That's one of the most important ingredients you can have. When I say ingredients, abilities. That's toughness. Well, that's never changed. We've asked him to move him around a lot, and his toughness probably has gotten, magnified more versus exposed more, magnified, because he's the one guy in that post having to battle now. Before you may not have noticed as much when you had Charles down there with him, but now he's the one guy that's battling those big guys. Then we got Jared, who is no question has picked up his ability in there too to do some things. Carson, defensively it's a challenge, and as you well have known, watching us kind of evolve differently, we've had to change defenses against different personnel and just continue to mix and match to keep him out of foul trouble based on who he's playing. And offensively the same way. There's one thing that we haven't done much. I say much, very little, if any, is throw the ball to the block. That's always been something that, always have had the ability to do. Carson can score there, but when he has the bigger, more athletic guys on him, it's a little bit more difficult for him. But when you pull him away from the basket some, now it's to his advantage. So we've just tried to play to his advantage based on who he's playing against. There's some big guys you can pull away from the basket and drive them. There's some big guys, taller guys that, don't have the bulk that you can post a little bit. But I would think probably as this is involved, his perimeter game is involved more than his post game over these last 6-7 games.
Coach, what have you seen from Rawls as in the stretch games where he's had to step in and be that starter? How have you seen him improve?
You know, I don't get hung up in starting, who starts, who doesn't start. Even when he was coming off the bench, you know, we all knew he was our, you know, best point guard at the time. And again, there's no substitute for experience, you know, and early in the season, you know, it's adjustment. It's still adjustment. It's going to be adjustment every game. He's having to defend people differently as ever defend, you know, guard different kind of ball screens. But, you know, he's a really confident young player offensively. And, you know, we let him have the green light offensively. I trust him to go make plays. And again, some mistakes he's going to make, only time and experience is going to help cure those things. But it's very obvious that he's helped us. The amount of minutes he's playing has helped us offensively. But again, we need everybody on that bench. We're playing the amount of minutes that we can get some people some relief. That maybe starts that game some, where you started or not started. But it's always good when you jump up and make shots too. You know, I think that's one thing that Rawls can do. He jumped up and made some shots against Marshall that was huge for us, helping get a little separation in that game.
Coach, you guys tip off Thursday night at 6 and then play again Saturday morning at 11 a.m. How challenging of a road trip is playing a Thursday night, Saturday morning game, much less against two quality conference opponents? Well,
it is challenging, and all those things you've talked about. You know, I think the most challenging thing, you know, the environment wouldn't be challenging, the time wouldn't be challenging if we weren't playing against a really good basketball teams. That's the main thing. If Florida National was a bad team, playing them at 11 o'clock versus 2 o'clock, there's no difference. But our challenge is we're playing a really good basketball team, a team that no one's beaten them at home yet, a team that can score points. You know, their big guy last year, if you remember, he had 16 and 10 on us here against Charles. If you'll go back and check your stats, he was a load in here. And he's back as a senior now, so they're an experienced team too, and they're really good at home. Just beat Old Dominion on the road to at Old Dominion. That tells you enough how good they are.
Sort of a off topic, I think we're wrapping up, but you ever had an experience or ever met Kobe Bryant at all? Or a story?
Well,
Some may not have.
I've had several, playing out in California a couple different times. I remember taking my, you know, team to Lakers games, saw him play in person 2 or 3 times, and I remember when we were able to practice in their practice facility once. We were playing in John Wooden Classic, and you know, didn't have a chance to ever visit with him. And but you know, the thing, like so many other people, it was just heart-wrenching news when you heard it. You know, in a sport that, you know, that I love, it's been my life. You see a person, a player, kind of become the best at it. Man, how much you admire that and respect that in a person. And you know, in a thing that took me to another level of respect for him, and was over the last, you know, 4 years after basketball, after retirement. And this is something I can really relate to, is every time I seen him, he seemed to have his arms wrapped around his family or his little girls. Every game, wherever you saw him. And again, that's something, you know, I can really relate to, and, you know, another level of respect, the way he went about doing things with his, you know, his work ethic and his, you know, his mentality, how he did things. And, you know, like I say, it's just heart-wrenching. You know, it's something that I don't know when or where, if there's ever been, you know, a player that's affected so many different people, not just in basketball, United States, but around the world. Around the world. And he was on that stage. But that stage he was on, it was impactful, very impactful. And again, for those other people on that plane, you know, his wife and those other children, man, hey, like I say, your hearts just, feel so much for them, man. And it's going to take some time for a lot of people to get over this.